Hello and welcome to the Sunday edition of Daily News Simplified. Today we have taken the important articles from Indian Express and The Hindu and curated as per the demands of Civil Services examination. The topics for today's discussion are mentioned over your screen. So let's begin our session. The first topic for today's discussion is based on this article which appeared on Indian Express dated 1 July 2023. The context of this article is that recently the Indian government has published the first ever list of 30 critical minerals, which are crucial to the nation's economic growth, technological development, and national security of the country. So proceeding in the article, we will see what are critical minerals and how has government reached out to this list of 30 critical minerals. Then we will see what is the need for this classification and some challenges arising out in India. Further, we will see some global initiatives and Indian initiatives in this regard. Now, the topic of critical minerals is important for our GS Paper 1 Geography. Under the syllabus, distribution of key natural resources around the world. The policy of government around critical minerals is important for GS Paper 2 Polity and Governance. Under the syllabus head, Government Policies and Interventions. And the international cooperation regarding critical minerals is important for our GS Paper 2 International Relations. And critical mineral segment is also important for our GS Paper 3 Science and Technology. If we see the previous year questions of UPSC, in the year 2012 we found this particular question which was regarding rare earth metals. And further in the article we will see that government has categorized rare earth metals as critical mineral in India. Also in the mains examination in 2013, we found this question, which was regarding the presence of reserves of shale oil and gas in India, but there have been issues regarding the tapping of these resources. So on the similar lines, we can expect a question on critical minerals, that what is their state of availability in India and what are the issues involved, and government initiatives in this regard. So recently, the Ministry of Mines has released a report on the identification of critical minerals in India. And in this report, India has listed or identified 30 critical minerals. We will see the list soon. But before it, let's see what are critical minerals. The criteria of identification of critical minerals is different for different countries. But in general, we can say that what are critical minerals? These are the minerals which are essential for the economic development and national security of our country. The minerals have a huge economic importance. And another important factor is supply risk associated with these minerals. And also because of the lack of availability of these minerals or concentration of these minerals in some particular locations may lead to supply chain risk and disruption. Hence, the economic importance and supply risk associated with the critical minerals is more than that of other raw materials. So this is the list of 30 critical minerals released by the government recently. This list by the government includes 17 rare earth elements and 6 platinum group elements, apart from other critical elements. So this is in general an alphabetical list of these minerals, not in the order of their importance. So in this list, you must be familiar with some minerals such as cobalt, copper, semiconductors like silicon and germanium, other minerals like graphite, nickel, tin, titanium. Also we can see phosphorus and potash. Potash and phosphorus are the common ingredients of chemical fertilizers, for which India is majorly import dependent. PGE means platinum group elements. These are the group of elements which share similar physical and chemical properties of platinum. And the list has rare earth elements. Rare earth elements consist of 17 elements, which comprises 15 lanthanides. Lanthanides is a series in the periodic table which consists of 15 elements. These are from the atomic number 57 to 71. Apart from lanthanides, rare earth element comprises scandium and yttrium. So this is the list of rare earth elements. Just have a look, no need to cram it. So in this list of 30 minerals, 10 minerals are 100% import dependent. So this is the list of 10 critical minerals for which India is 100% import dependent. So this is the list of uses of these critical minerals. And apart from the individual uses, these 30 critical minerals have huge economic importance, as these critical minerals are the backbone of clean technologies, which includes zero emission vehicles, wind turbines, solar panels, advanced batteries, hydrogen fuel cells, and small modular reactors. Apart from this, they are also important for information and communication technologies such as the semiconductors like silicon and germanium. Also, these are important for space and defense technologies, for high value electronic materials such as permanent magnets. They are also important for critical medical instruments and for the manufacture of polymers and biomaterials. Now let us see what is the need for classifications of critical minerals, or what is the need for this list. Now firstly, owing to their huge economic potential, which we have already discussed, there is a high demand for critical minerals around the globe. The major players in the field of critical minerals, such as US, China, have comprehensive critical minerals policies. But as of now, India did not even have a list of critical minerals. And obviously, India doesn't have a critical mineral policy. And we know that India has great vision for its future. For example, India wants to become a manufacturing hub, especially for semiconductors and electronic items, and which require the availability of these critical minerals. And also we know that India is aiming to move towards zero emissions country, or a carbon neutral country, but that is by the year 2070. But for that, we need to adopt critical technologies, critical energy technologies like battery storage, solar panels, among others, and which also requires these critical minerals. And we know that as of now, India is nearly 100% dependent on import of these critical minerals from major countries. And one of the major suppliers of critical minerals to India is China. Hence, India needs a classification of critical minerals which will be followed by a critical mineral strategy in order to cater to the rising demands of these minerals. Another important factor is to avert supply side risk. As we know that currently India is around 100% dependent on the import of these minerals. But in the times of changing geodynamics, there can be a significant supply chain risk. For example, China, which is a major player in the supply of critical minerals, is still recovering from the effects of COVID-19 lockdown. And as a result, the extraction, processing and exports of critical minerals are at a risk of slowdown. Another important players in this field are Russia and Ukraine. Russia is one of the significant producers of minerals like nickel, palladium, titanium and other rare earth elements. And Ukraine is the major producer of titanium apart from lithium, cobalt, graphite and other rare earth elements. So because of the war between these countries, there may be implications on the supply chain of critical minerals. Also, there is a risk that as the global geodynamics are evolving, the growing partnership between China and Russia may cause a power shift and hence can pose a supply side risk to India. Another important factor is national security. Critical minerals are vital for the defense equipments and defense technology. They are also used in the aerospace sector, space technologies, satellite and communication technologies. So in order to secure these services, India needs a reliable supply of critical minerals. Another important factor is environmental sustainability. As already discussed, India has ambitions to transition towards a clean economy or a low carbon economy. And these critical minerals are important for this transition. So in order to achieve these objectives, India needs to diversify its supply chain and reduce its dependency on any particular country and explore the potential of critical minerals in India. So one significant step by India in this regard is by entering into Mineral Security Partnership. Recently, in June 2023, India has joined the Mineral Security Partnership. Mineral Security Partnership is an alliance of United States and other developing countries, which aims to bolster critical mineral supply chain. This alliance was set up in June 2022 and India has recently joined this alliance. And as of now, India is the only developing country in this alliance. The other members of this alliance include Australia, Canada, Finland, France, Germany, Japan, Republic of Korea, Sweden, United Kingdom, United States, European Commission, Italy, and India. So you can see that China is not a part of this alliance. So one of the important objectives of Mineral Security Partnership is also to provide an alternative to China. Presently, China is the major producer of rare earth elements and other critical minerals. So this alliance will catalyze the investment from the private sector and the public sector towards the exploration and building of a critical mineral supply chain. And this alliance is particularly important for India as India can gain the key technologies for the exploration of critical minerals, and also India can diversify the import of these critical minerals. And now let's see the initiatives by India to accelerate mineral exploration activities in India. The first step to this regard is the amendment of the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act in 2021. So amendment to this act has opened up exploration in the mineral sectors for the private companies. And hence the private sector can bring in the necessary expertise and investment and can explore for minerals in the country. Another important initiative is setting up a PSU, Public Sector Undertaking, Khanij Videsh India Limited. So this PSU will ensure the consistent supply of critical and strategic minerals to the Indian domestic market. And for this, the PSU will carry out identification, acquisition, exploration, development, mining and processing of strategic minerals overseas. And recently there was a news that this PSU is going to ink a deal with Argentina to secure few lithium blocks and carry out lithium mining in Argentina. Another important initiative is India-Australia Critical Minerals Investment Partnership. India has signed this Critical Minerals Investment Partnership with Australia recently in 2023. And in this partnership, India is investing in the exploration of critical minerals in Australia, particularly for the supply of lithium and cobalt. So let us see what is the way forward for India in this regard. The first step is capacity development. So it is expected that after the release of critical minerals list, India will go forward to develop a critical mineral strategy or a critical mineral policy. So for it, India needs to develop the entire value chain of critical minerals, right from exploration to recycling. Now for development of this value chain, there needs to be capacity development in each stage of this value chain, such as capacity development in geoscience and exploration, for mineral extraction, for mineral processing, capacity development for advanced manufacturing and recycling. And for which India will require advanced technologies. And India can acquire this technology from collaboration with the developed countries, such as from the member nations of Mineral Security Partnership. So as mining and mineral exploration process require a huge capital, so there is a need to encourage public and private investment in exploration, mining and processing facilities. And finally, there is a need to establish Center of Excellence on Critical Minerals. So India can establish a National Institute or a Center of Excellence on Critical Minerals, which will support building up of new research and infrastructure to identify more innovative and efficient methods of mineral exploration in India. And this is needed because India is rich in mineral resources, but it is highly unexplored. Also, the center may engage in interministerial coordination for the demand of critical minerals, and it can also collaborate with international agencies for strategic acquisition of critical minerals. The next topic for today's discussion is based on this article which appeared on Indian Express dated 30 June 2023. The context of the article is that the recent visit of India's Prime Minister to the US have cemented the bilateral relations of the country. Among others, the countries have signed a technology partnership, and the new US-India technology partnership is being identified as a new geopolitical frontier. This is in the context of the semiconductor chips war between US and China. The two biggest economic powers of the world, the United States and China, are engaged in a rivalry for production and processing of semiconductors. So this new technology partnership between US and India aims to diversify the global semiconductor supply chain. Now this article is about what are the opportunities created for India in this ongoing semiconductor chips rivalry between the country. So in this article we will see what are semiconductors, brief highlights about the US-China semiconductor rivalry, and what are the challenges emanating in India to manufacture semiconductor chips. So this topic is important for our GS paper 2 International Relations. Under the syllabus, effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest. Semiconductors are also important for GS paper 3 Science and Technologies under the section New Emerging Technologies. So what are semiconductors? Semiconductors are the materials which have electrical conductivity between that of a conductor and an insulator. The examples of semiconductors are silicon, germanium, gallium arsenide. And semiconductor chips are tiny electronic devices which are made by fabricating electronic components over silicon or germanium wafers. This is a semiconductor chip, and these are the building blocks of any electronic technology. These semiconductor chips are the drivers of information and communication technology revolution. These semiconductor chips have various applications in computers and laptops, phones, mobile devices, and other electronic gadgets, automobiles, aviation sector, in medical devices. They are also used in military equipment and defense systems. And they are the backbone of Industry 4.0 and used in artificial intelligence technologies. Now let us briefly understand US-China chip war. Now before the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, China had the dominance in the semiconductor market and supply chain. Now since last few years, United States has been trying to control the dominance of China and increase the dominance of USA in the semiconductor industry. So in this step, US has denied semiconductor technology to China to prevent China from gaining high-end tech dominance over the world. So one such incident was the restrictions on the Chinese telecom giant Huawei by US, citing that this telecom giant is a threat to US national security. So these restrictions on this telecom giant has prevented this company from accessing semiconductors made using American tools and software. Another example is the formation of Chip 4 Alliance. This is an alliance of the world's major producers of semiconductors. This includes United States, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. So this alliance also counters the dominance of China in the semiconductor supply chain and aims to limit China's access to semiconductor technology. Further, the US has also pumped up its domestic capacity for making chips. So for it, US has passed an act to fund domestic semiconductor research and manufacturing. So let us see what is India's status in the semiconductor market. So presently, the entire supply of semiconductors is at the hands of a few countries like the Chip 4 Alliance members and China, and also some European nations. And India has remained far behind these countries in semiconductor manufacture and processing. 100% of India's chips, memory, and displays are imported. So we can say that in the absence of semiconductor fabrication and manufacturing units, India is almost 100% dependent to the import of semiconductor chips. Presently, India has 2 fabrication units for semiconductor chips. These are Sitar in Bengaluru, which is a unit of DRDO, and there is a semiconductor laboratory in Chandigarh. But these fabrication units build silicon chips for strategic purposes, such as defense and space. But these chips are not built for commercial purposes. Also, these fabrication units are not as sophisticated as those in the developed countries. So, India's heavy reliance on imports to meet the demand for semiconductor poses various challenges, such as supply chain vulnerabilities, dependence on foreign suppliers, potential risks to national security, and draining of forex reserves. Presently, the semiconductor chips import bill of India is $24 billion, and a report has estimated that by the year 2025, India's semiconductor import bill will reach $100 billion. So let us see what are the challenges with India in manufacturing semiconductor chips. The first challenge is high cost of establishment of fabrication units. India has a decent chip design talent, but presently we don't have any commercial fabrication units. This is because the commercial fabrication units are highly capital intensive and they cost billions of dollars for large facilities. And as per government estimate, it will roughly cost $5 to $7 billion to set up one fabrication unit in India. Another important challenge is resource inefficiency. So for the smooth production of semiconductors, there are some factors. The smooth production of semiconductors requires an uninterrupted power supply, which is a 24/7 power supply. The other major requirement is ultra clean water. Ultra clean water is a highly purified water which don't have any contaminants, and this is used in washing the silicon chips. And providing ultra clean water in large volumes is also one of the challenges associated with India. Another important requirement is fabrication infrastructure, which India is lacking. And also semiconductor manufacturing is not like assembling. It requires a highly skilled labor. Another important challenge in India is technological constraints. The manufacturing of semiconductors require high-end technology. most of which is patented. So these technologies are to be licensed from these patent holders at a very high price. Another issue is structural constants. The process of establishing an indigenous semiconductor facility in India has a low ease of doing business because it requires multiple clearances from various government departments, and there is a delay in land acquisition and other issues like uncertain tax regimes. And because of all these factors, the foreign direct investment in electronics is very poor. The foreign direct investment in the electronic sectors of India is less than 1% of the total FDI in India. Another important issue is negligence from the government. Indian government has shown a negligence in signing a free trade agreement with Taiwan or a bilateral investment agreement with Taiwan. And Taiwan presently is the world's biggest semiconductor chip manufacturer. So such reluctance by the government has hindered Indian effort to attract major chip manufacturers in India. And finally, because of all these factors, there is an absence of a complete chip ecosystem in India. And this is also a major reason why the international chip manufacturers are reluctant in coming to India. So now, because of the US-China chip rivalry, there is a huge opportunity for India to take the advantage of this rivalry and push itself as an alternative to China. US has been trying to diversify the semiconductor supply chain, and for which India can take the advantage. And if we talk about government efforts in this sector, one of the major initiatives is India's Semiconductor Mission, which has been launched by the central government in the year 2021. And this mission is for the development of sustainable semiconductors and display ecosystem in India. The components of the mission include a scheme for setting up semiconductor fabrication in India, a scheme for setting up display fabrication in India, and the scheme of setting up compound semiconductors, silicon photonics, and other semiconductor facilities in India. And earlier we saw that recently India has entered into US-India Technology Partnership. Apart from this, there are various other partnership initiatives between India and US in the field of semiconductors. One such initiative is US-India Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology. The initiative was signed in 2022 and it aims at fostering the collaboration between two countries in various domains, such as in the field of semiconductors, resilient supply chains, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and critical and emerging technologies. And in the Prime Minister's recent visit to US, India has signed an MOU on semiconductor supply chain and innovative partnership. So this MOU is to promote commercial opportunities, research, talent, and skill development in the field of semiconductors. And during this recent visit, the US companies have done some announcement for the India's semiconductor field. So one major announcement is from Micron Technology, which is a leading semiconductor firm in United States. The firm has announced to make an investment of $825 million to build a semiconductor fabrication facility in India. This facility will be made in Gujarat, and for setting up this facility, the remaining 70% cost is to be borne by Indian government, 50% by the central government and 20% by the Gujarat state government. In the field of semiconductors, India is presently lagging behind 2 or 3 decades. So these partnership initiatives between India and US gives India a huge opportunity to propel the growth of the semiconductor sector in India. The next topic for today's discussion is based on this article which appeared on Indian Express dated June 28. This article is about debate surrounding Uniform Civil Code. The context of the article is that the 22nd Law Commission has invited views from the public and some recognized religious organization on the Uniform Civil Code. And soon after the Law Commission invited the views on Uniform Civil Code, it was supported by the Prime Minister of India. So in this article, we will be seeing what is Uniform Civil Code and its origin, what are the constitutional debates surrounding Uniform Civil Code, what is the need for implementing Uniform Civil Code, and what are the challenges regarding its implementation. So this topic is important for our GS Paper 2 Polity and Governance. Under the syllabus head, Indian Constitution, Evolution, Features and Amendments, especially Directive Principles of State Policy. And if we see previous year question regarding Indian Constitution, In the year 2017, we found a question on directive principles of state policy, and in the year 2020, there was a question on the ideal of welfare state. So what is Uniform Civil Code? As the name implies, Uniform Civil Code. It is the idea of having common code of personal laws for all religions. Currently, the personal laws of India are very complex, and each religion is following its specific laws or regulations. So the idea is to have a common code or a common law for every religion. And this will be a common code of personal laws which will cover the aspects of inheritance, marriage, divorce, adoption, child custody and alimony. The idea of Uniform Civil Code is often debated in India, but this idea itself finds mention in the Constitution of India. The Part 4 of Indian Constitution deal with directive principles of state policy, wherein the Article 44 states that states should endeavour to secure for citizens a uniform civil code throughout the territory of India. Now this is to harmonize diverse cultural practices and address discrimination. Goa is the only state in India which has a uniform civil code for family laws. And this uniform civil code in the state is the continuation of the earlier Portuguese laws in the state. During the formation of Indian Constitution, there was a substantial debate in the Constituent Assembly that whether Uniform Civil Code should be included as a DPSP or as a fundamental right. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar was of the view that Uniform Civil Code should not be enforced on people. This is because Article 44 merely proposes that the state should endeavour to secure for citizens a uniform civil code. But this uniform civil code should not be enforced on people. And Parliament could make provisions for applying uniform civil code, but those provisions should be purely voluntary in nature. Nazaruddin Ahmed, who was a member of Constituent Assembly from Bengal, felt that uniform civil code will come in the way of right to religion. And he argued that it was not the right time for uniform civil code and its implementation should be a gradual process with the consent of concerned communities. Another member of the Constituent Assembly, K.M. Munshi, rejected the notion that uniform civil code will come in the way of right to religion. And he advocated implementation of uniform civil code, stating its benefits such as it would promote the unity of the nation, it will give equality to women, among others. So these were the views of some eminent personalities regarding the debates over UCC in Constituent Assembly. Finally, UCC was covered under Article 44 of DPSP. Now let us see various views on Uniform Civil Code. The Supreme Court in the Shah Banu case of 1985 has supported the implementation of Uniform Civil Code. The Supreme Court in this case has said that a common civil code will help the cause of national integration by removing disparate loyalties to the law which have conflicting ideologies. Hence, in this judgment, the Supreme Court directed the Parliament to frame a uniform civil code. But in the S.R. Momai case of 1994, the Supreme Court has expressed concern and said that whether a secular state like India should bring a code which is perceived as a threat to personal laws based on religious beliefs of individual religions. And the Supreme Court has warned that if a uniform civil code has to be implemented, then religion should not be mixed with politics. Supreme Court in the Sarla Mudgal versus Union of India case 1995 has called on the government to implement Uniform Civil Code. Here, the Supreme Court has said that Uniform Civil Code can be introduced, but the society and religious leaders should embrace it openly. The 21st Law Commission submitted a report on Uniform Civil Code in 2018. In this report, the Law Commission has said that Uniform Civil Code in India is neither necessary nor desirable. Further, the Law Commission has recommended religion-wise amendment in the personal laws to end discrimination against women within the communities. And there should be efforts to bring equality between men and women. So let us see what are the arguments in favor of Uniform Civil Code. The earlier Law Commission or the 21st Law Commission had said that the practices like sati, devdasi, triple talaq and child marriage do not conform with the basic tenets of human rights and they are not essential practices to religion. So the rationale of Uniform Civil Code is to formulate uniform civil laws, aim to secure justice and bring equality to all citizens, irrespective of the religion or the ethnicity to which they belong. The implementation of Uniform Civil Code will simplify the complex personal laws of religion, and hence it will simplify the complex socio-religious framework. Implementation of Uniform Civil Code will do away with the diversity in matrimonial laws. It will simplify the Indian legal system and make the Indian society more homogeneous. The aim is to de-link law from religion and to create a common national identity. A common national identity will dissipate the separatist tendencies. Also, the implementation will promote monogamy among all citizens of India, including in the Muslim community. The implementation will remove prejudices against women regarding personal laws on divorce and maintenance. However, there are some arguments in opposition of Uniform Civil Code. The first argument is that the implementation of Uniform Civil Code is against the tenets of Constitution. That is, it is against the right to freedom of religion guaranteed by the Article 25. And this implementation will go against the judgment in the S.R. Bommai case, in which it was held that secularism is a part of fundamental law and basic structure of Indian political system. Another issue is that the implementation of the law will hurt the religious sentiment of the masses and will impact the cultural practices of sub-tribal communities in India. Further, the implementation will dilute the pluralism in the Indian society. And further, it will be a tedious or a complex task to unify all personal laws of all the religions, caste, communities, tribes across the country. Another argument is that the constitution makers did not intend total uniformity. That is why the personal laws are placed in the concurrent list. And already there are too many state level amendments in the personal laws. So a way forward in this regard can be, before framing a draft Uniform Civil Code, all religions and communities in India should be consulted and should be taken into confidence. And the Uniform Civil Code should be framed in a way that it will ensure a balance between the fundamental rights and the religious principles of different communities. And if a Uniform Civil Code is to be implemented, it should be made on such common matters which are least controversial and most urgent. The idea is to provide uniformity in the laws by consent. So it requires a proper consultation with all the stakeholders, and a uniform civil code should not be enforced without the consent of the citizens. The final topic for today's discussion is based on this article, which appeared on the page number 12 of today's The Hindu. The context of this article is that recently on June 21, India became the 27th signatory to the Artemis Accord. Artemis Accord was covered in detail in the DNS dated 24 June 2023. Today in this article, we will be discussing, will signing Artemis Accord benefit India? And this is important for our GS Paper 3 Science and Technology under the syllabus Astronomy and Space Technology. So for a brief overview, what are Artemis Accords? These are the non-binding set of principles designed to guide civil space exploration cooperation between nations who are participating in NASA's Artemis program. Artemis program is the series of ongoing space missions by NASA. The mission focuses to land humans on Moon and after that focus on Mars as a long-term human spaceflight mission. The Artemis Accords reinforce and implement key obligations in the Outer Space Treaty 1967, and India is a party to this Outer Space Treaty. Now this Artemis Accords were drafted in the year 2020, but India has joined this accord only in 2023. So the question arises, why didn't India sign the accords earlier? So the reason is, initially India had a reluctance for private participation in space. But in the recent years, starting from 2020, India has done many reforms in the space sector and opened up the sector for the private participation. In the year 2023, India released its new space policy. And this new space policy allowed the private players to mine any space resource. So that is why India signed this accord in 2023 with this evolving attitude. Earlier, India hesitated signing the accords as these were a non-binding treaty. India was concerned that this non-binding treaty is an informal set of norms rather than a legally binding instrument. But now, India has changed its diplomatic stand and signed this accord. Also recently, there has been improvement in the ties between United States and India, and which led India to join these accords. Now the question is, will signing these accords benefit India? The answer is definitely. In the coming few weeks, India is going to launch Chandrayaan 3. Also in the coming years, India is going to launch Gaganyaan. So India will greatly benefit by being a party to this accord, as it will bestow India with technical expertise and exchange of information from NASA. And this knowledge sharing and technical expertise can be utilized by India in its Gaganyaan and any other future missions. Also, the signing of these accords will provide an economic potential, as the Indian companies and the Indian private sector can also participate in the global space economy. So a way forward for India in this regard would be to increase the budget allocation for ISRO. So this brings an end to today's session. Stay connected for more updates. Thank you.